Dr. Darby here, going over the key concept of time as it relates to our spinal disc. All right, so we've been going over a lot of good information about the disc itself, and just a brief review. So that disc has that fluid-filled sac in the middle, surrounded by all those concentric rings. A key concept of this is it's under a lot of pressure. So pressure from kind of the weight-bearing aspect of what we do in gravity, but also the internal pressure. This fluid-filled sac creates an external pressure that pushes outward. Due to the gravity pushing on it, the fluid pushes back. This creates an environment where the nerves in the disc only grow very shallowly into the disc. This creates a pretty interesting phenomenon. The blood vessels only grow that deep as well too, and so this pressure kind of limits the nutrition that the disc can get, but because of this highly fluid state, as long as you're moving well, that disc can stay really healthy. Now, say we have an injury as a teenager, and we don't really care for it really well, and we get a disc bulge as a result, and maybe that progresses into a protrusion. And so what's going to be happening there is this jelly is going to get shoved one direction. And there's typically going to be other consequences in the joint as well too, kind of in the surrounding joint structures, and we'll have some initial pain as a result of that injury. But at the disc level, we won't really feel the injury at all, because again, the nerves are only growing very shallowly into the joint, not very deep. And so the perception of the injury actually isn't there. We can't feel that injury at all. We may feel the muscles that we stretch, the ligaments that we torn, that sort of stuff, but those are outside the disc. So this disc injury in our young adulthood, we won't really feel. Now, we don't really do anything about it, and most likely it's going to get a little worse with time. Now, the keys in our other video about how to prevent injury and kind of maximize recovery, we're going to want to do here, because if we don't do anything, this bulge is most likely going to turn into a protrusion, and that's going to lead to arthritis and herniation and all the other consequences. But say we don't do anything and the pain just kind of goes away on its own after about maybe a couple weeks or maybe even a couple days. Fast track, now we're in our maybe early 40s. We've maybe packed on a couple pounds. This injury's gotten worse over time because we haven't done anything about it. But now we're combining that with the lack of pressure. Because this disc was injured and wasn't cared for very well, it's going to age much faster. Part of the aging process is we're going to be losing some of that hydration at an accelerated rate. That hydration was maintaining that pressure. If that pressure starts to go down, these nerves will start to grow deeper. And they will come a point when they actually contact that injury for the very first time in your whole life. And so commonly, we can have people that experience really significant back pain as a result of a disc injury that happened in their teenage years or early 20s. Because what happened is the disc got aged at an accelerated rate, and then the nerves reached that injury for the very first time in maybe your early 40s. But say you were smart and you did go to a chiropractor, you did do everything well, that injury is still present. And if we do all the good things in that other video to maintain our disc health, we'll probably run into this issue now maybe in our kind of late 40s or maybe even more commonly in our 50s or 60s, because unfortunately, even though I'm an amazing chiropractor, I can't stop time. And so sometimes I'll have to walk my patients through this process where they will be becoming sensitive to an old injury, even though they've done everything well. That injury way back in the day still did some damage, and at some point in time, their nerves will come and contact it for the very first time, and that's going to kind of reawaken them to the injury. Now, the good thing is we can get them adjusted, we can kind of restabilize that joint, circulate as much nutrition as we can, and then we will eventually get into a more equilibrium state where we're not as sensitive once again. But commonly, we can get into that window in that 40 to 50 range, and I walk my patients through this process. So hopefully you enjoyed this last video in our disc set. If you have any questions, just feel free to call our office. I love to educate, because that's how we get stronger as individuals. And of course, if you need some good chiropractic work, I'd love to help you there too. Looking forward to serving you in the future. Bye for now.